Okay. Hello. Okay, welcome to CAM, everyone. My name is Alex Elmstead. I'm the manager of public programs here at CAM. Thank you. Thanks. I wanted to take this opportunity to first and foremost thank our members for making this program possible. Without their support, nothing is possible. So if you guys are interested in becoming members, you can, of course, talk to our front desk or our front table, and they'll sign you up. There's lots of great benefits to becoming a member. I also like to take this opportunity to kind of ask everybody in the room, do we have any first-time visitors by a show of hands? I always like to kind of see this. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So thank you for coming. We hope that you come back. We have lots of great programs again. So I also want to thank HOK Architecture for co-hosting the event. And then, yes? Mm-hmm. And of course, Good Magazine and CEOs for Cities. And so now, yep, great, yeah, sure. So now I would just like to I would like to introduce Alyssa Walker, who is the editor of Good Magazine. And if you guys could just please give her a round of applause and welcome her to St. Louis.
I'm not the editor of Good Magazine. I'm just the editor of this particular project of Good Magazine. So don't tweet that, please. I'm going to say a little introduction in a minute, but first of all, I'd like to introduce a very special guest we have here tonight, the Mayor of St. Louis, the Honorable Francis Slay.
Thank you, Alicia. Wow, this is really, really great. First of all, I want to welcome you here to the Contemporary Art Museum in St. Louis, and really can't think of a better place to have a Good Ideas event, Good Ideas for City, than right here in Grand Center, because this is really, this Grand Center has been a really good idea for our city, and the Contemporary Art Museum is a big and important part of this the good idea. We certainly want to thank Contemporary Art Museum and HOK for hosting this and all the sponsors, but most importantly, I want to thank all of you for being here and participating. This is very, very encouraging to see so many young people, professionals, and creatives, people who care about our city, people who want to make it better, here to really talk about it in a way that we want to make use of. We don't want this just to be a discussion. We want to make sure we come up with some great ideas. And getting together in a group like this is important, and having something organized like this to encourage ideas, to cultivate them, is very good, because you can take these ideas and do something substantial for the future. And what I like about what I see here today is we have a lot of young people who love the city, who want to make it better, who have ideas about that, and are looking for a way to express it. I do have a number of people from my staff here in city government. I want you to know that I and my staff is going to be fully engaged in this entire process to make sure that it is meaningful and that it is successful. We have also, I saw a number, I know I didn't see them all, I haven't seen everybody yet, but a number of members of what I call my Vanguard Cabinet. For those of you who don't know what that is, that's a group of creative and young people who work with me on various issues that impact the city, and they've been very helpful in helping develop policy and other and address other issues that the city faces. Again, this is a great job. This is a great thing. If there's anybody who thinks that they are not part of the process or they haven't been fully heard, please get engaged, and it's good to see you here, because I want to hear from everybody who cares about the city and who wants to make it stronger, better, and more efficient. That's what this is all about. This world is changing rapidly, and we as a city need to keep up the pace, and we need to make sure we also try to set some trends as well. So thank you all for being here, and I know together we can make St. Louis a better place to live, to catch a train, to ride a bike, to walk to work, to grow a business, and to have fun. Have fun tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think blue is a good color for you, so hope it fits. Wow, if I could just echo everything that he said, I think I don't have many more things to add to what you said. It's been really, really amazing to be a part of this. I just want to quickly go through and thank everybody at the beginning so we can do a big cheer after everyone I say and make everybody feel really happy to contribute. First of all, well, cheer for good. Cheer for me really fast. So good and CEOs for Cities. And to the Contemporary Art Museum, of course. Amazing host. And a beautiful building. To HOK, we couldn't have done this without you guys. You're an amazing team. Okay, this is a bunch. St. Louis Design Week. Yeah. The Regional Arts Commission. The lovely Amber Murphy. You don't even know who that is, but you should cheer for her. She's been so helpful in this process. And AIGA St. Louis, who has been a great partner. And then to our media partners, Nine Network, who is floating around filming tonight. Thank you. Alive Magazine, who has done some great profiles of everyone here, your teams. And our blog partners, Urban Review, is it Urban Review St. Louis, not STL? Urban Review St. Louis, thank you. And I guess this one is next STL, but we'll say next St. Louis. Thank you. And finally to Art Place, who gave us the grant to make this all possible. And Carol Coletta, who's the executive director, could not be here tonight. She's very, very sad, but thank you to Art Place for making this possible. Okay, so as you may know, I am most thrilled to be here in St. Louis because I am from St. Louis. I grew up here, and yes, thank you. I moved back. Maybe, we'll talk about that. But I'm very, very happy to be here tonight. Just to give you a little bit of, information about me, I went to Parkway West High School, which, if you use this very highly scientific chart, you will see that, let's see, I am not Catholic. I did not grow up in the city, and I guess my parents call lawyers to get me out of traffic tickets. Not anymore, not anymore. Just when I was a kid. So I'm kind of mad that they didn't give Parkway West its own slot, but is the person here who made this? It's amazing. Thank you for doing that. Pretty amazing. So I graduated from high school, thankfully, and went to college and became a journalist. And I moved to Los Angeles, where I started writing for a publication called Good. Does everyone, you guys know about Good? Familiar? Okay. Do we have any subscribers to Good? Thank you. You have helped feed me for the past 5 years. I really appreciate it. So Good is a very special publication. It's not just a magazine. It's a wonderful, quarterly magazine. It's also just this great community. They make videos. They do events. They have this wonderful website where you can really see it's more than just a publication. It's a place, it's almost like a platform for action. It's a place where people who are doing really great things try to come together, share ideas, and make better things happen. So as I was writing for the publication, I was the design editor, and I really wanted to find a way to connect the designers I knew that were doing really cool work, but were really hungry to be able to do more for their communities. And then I'd go to places like City Hall and talk to people there, and they were like, oh, well, we really just need more help. Obviously, most City Halls need more help, but they really just were getting frustrated with the way that, no offense to your City Hall, of course, sir, but but they're just short on resources and budget, and they just really needed more people to be able to step up and help. But I wanted to be able to make that connection between the two groups. So we decided to have an event, and this was in 2008, and this is where we tapped a bunch of the great architects and artists and designers that we knew, and we said, pretend that, Los Angeles is your client and take on a problem that you're seeing in Los Angeles. And it was one of the best events that I had ever been to. And I'm not just saying that because I planned it, but I can say that it got the right people in the room to have the right conversations about what kind of city they wanted to live in. And I had never been to an event like that before. So just to give you a little overview of how it works, we have the urban leaders who issue a challenge and tell us what's the biggest thing that they think should be solved in the city. We have local creatives design the solutions for the urban leaders. We have the teams present these brilliant ideas at these events, and we have a live audience that drinks beer. Your job is so easy. That's all you have to do tonight. The beer is very important, I think. It's a crucial part of this. So other cities started to contact us and said, well, can you bring the program here? And so we ended up taking it to San Francisco, New York. We took it to a bunch of schools. And then last year, we got a grant from ArtPlace to help expand the program and not only take it to more cities, but take it to smaller cities to see how we could create more change on the ground. So ArtPlace is a collaboration of the NEA, National Endowment for the Arts, and 11 different foundations who have a lot of money, that much money, which is a lot of money. And they're funding 34 projects across the country. So if you look on their site for ArtPlace, what they're focusing on is something called creative placemaking. So it's actually showing that artists and designers can be instrumental in improving communities. So we partnered with our good friends at CEOs for Cities, and we have Miss Julia Kleiber here from CEOs for Cities. Yay, Julia! And we relaunched the program as Good Ideas for Cities. And I'm going to have this lovely person tell you a little bit more about it. It's me.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Walker, and I'm the editor of Good Ideas for Cities. Good Ideas for Cities taps creative problem solvers and pairs them with urban leaders who tackle urban challenges and present the solutions at live events across the country.
It's a great time to be talking about cities and to be interested in cities.
An incredible opportunity within the urban realm.
The idea is that the city's talking to you and you're listening to the city.
In 2011, we received a grant from ArtPlace that will allow us to take the program to 5 mid-sized cities across the country. The ultimate goal is to not only engage groups of people in conversations about the future of their cities, but also to hopefully implement some of these solutions. So if a Good Ideas for Cities event is coming to a city near you, come on down and be part of the dialogue. If you're creative, you can apply to be a part of the event. And if you think we should come to your city, let us know. We're open to your ideas as well.
Okay. So as that very intelligent person just told you, we are going to 5 different cities. This is our second city on our tour. We've just announced Cincinnati and Richmond. And yes, these are very exciting. And we went to Portland last month. And then if you could go to our website, good.is/ideas for cities, you'll be able to see each of the solutions that are presented as a series of videos, and then you can just scroll through them and find different information. So we have about over 50 solutions that will be going up from the last couple years. So here's all the information for how you can follow us and check up on us and what we're doing. But I know when I put up this slide before, you were probably like, okay, so there's some questions that have not been answered. So what happens to the ideas? This is St. Louis in the Missouri, where you have to prove yourself, and you might need more beer. You can go get it at any time you want. But I think these are really valid questions. So I'm going to talk real quickly about what we would hope would happen today. So this is an example that came out of our last LA event. This is a designer named Tanya Aguiniga, and she was doing a solution for a local homelessness group we have in LA. And we asked them for their challenge, and they said, actually, our challenge is seriously a bureaucratic problem. It's paperwork. In the city of LA, it takes about 60 steps to get someone off the streets and into transitional housing. And they have to fill out a form every time they do it. And they're like, can you just help us get the process narrowed down? It just takes way too much time. Tanya is a designer. She's an industrial designer. She designs furniture and jewelry, which is very beautiful, but is not really, in the realm of this big, systemic change for an organization. But she was so smart. She looked at the problem they were having, and she was like, you know what? This looks like a board game. So she designed a board game to help them train the volunteers and help them kind of figure out if they were at this step, could they skip ahead to this step or go back 2 steps? If they've been in jail, go ahead 2 steps. If they don't have a TV test, go back 1 step, whatever. So they made this really cool board game. And then they use it to train their volunteers. So this is just an article. You can see them using the game in action. And they did it in LA, and then they did it also in New York at these places, these called housing placement boot camps. And what they told us is that it cuts the processing time in half, which is just absolutely amazing. Like, can you imagine how many more people they could get off the streets? And this was written about the New York Times, and I really love the quote that David Bornstein wrote. If a one-day process can spark big improvements in the way cities handle housing, what other government functions could be reimagined over chutes and ladders like game boards? And it's such a good point. Like, it's so simple. Yes, like games for all government. It's a great idea. But he really nailed it. Not only the part where, you know, we think something can be simplified into a board game, but that we really want people to share these ideas. Steal them, if you will. Just take them and take them to your own city or take them to your own government. So here's what we have in store for you here in St. Louis. And this is because of an amazing group of volunteers who you will get to know through this process. So after the presentations, we have these little stations set up that you might have seen where all the teams are going to be, and you can go talk to them, ask them questions, find out more, and get to meet them face to face. Over the next month, we're going to talk about what of the ideas that came out of here tonight. Maybe there's one idea, maybe it's a group of solutions. What is the one thing that we feel like could be implementable, that's exciting, that brings together different groups of people in St. Louis? What could be one idea that we could try to back? And we're also going to help the teams. We're going to teach them how to get grants, how to get funding, how to run an awesome Kickstarter campaign. And then in the week of September 24th, we're having an event at St. Louis Design Week, which is going to check in on all the teams and also talk a lot about implementation and all these other issues that we've been talking about, kind of how to make an idea a reality. So here's a map, which I have a hard time understanding where I am, so I put myself as a red star right there. So if I'm the red star, like right here is St. Louis Alley Lovers, you know, we've got everybody around the area. You'll be able to find them. We'll put this up after the presentations. And we've already set up a Facebook page just for St. Louis, so good idea, facebook.com, blah, blah, blah. And the hashtag good ideas STL. And then for the week of September 24th, all these amazing groups are going to be coming together, volunteering their time to put together a really awesome event that will follow up on this. And maybe in 6 months after that, we'll have another event, and we'll just keep following up on all the solutions. So here's what you need to know for tonight. Please tweet often, and please check out the Facebook page. And I think we are ready to start with our first group. So thank you all for being here tonight and for having us. So we did have over 30 teams apply to be a part of tonight's event, and the first team, and we chose 7 of them. We were only planning to choose 4 or 5, but we chose 7 because they were such good teams. We couldn't pick 4 or 5. So the first team tonight is the St. Louis Alley Lovers.
Thank you. This is really an amazing opportunity and event for the city. See? Okay. All right. Good. All right. We are the STL Alley Lovers, or the St. Louis Alley Lovers, and our urban leaders we were paired with were our Kim Sella from Citizens for Modern Transit and Rhonda Ham-Niebrigi from Lambert International Airport. Our challenge was to basically, in a nutshell, come up with a solution to how to increase ridership on Metrolink. So our team came together by building this crazy puzzle of St. Louis that's all about the neighborhoods of the city. So we met with both of our team leaders, and we all came to a realization there's fundamental issues I think we can all agree upon in this neighborhood that Metrolink needs to kind of address. One of which is there needs to be. It doesn't like transit. Yes, that's St. Louis in a nutshell. Tilt it down? Okay, so. All right. We'll try to get this done in 5 minutes now. Okay. So there's 3 things, one of which increased connectivity. Need more lines in the city. For instance, connecting South St. Louis to North St. Louis. A second one would be that there needs to be more frequent metro so you don't have to wait at the stops too long. And the third one would be to encourage the continued kind of proposals for mixed use and transit-oriented developments around the city. But we took a step back and realized for this challenge, those big issues are beyond the scope of what we could propose. So what we think is probably maybe the most, and we're hoping is maybe a suspicious optimism about the theme of tonight, is that the greatest asset of the city of St. Louis are its diverse set of neighborhoods. There are 79 neighborhoods, 8 plus 7 city parks in the city. These are what you just saw the slideshow of. We photographed an alley in every neighborhood. But funny enough, only 7 of those neighborhoods in one park is directly served by Metrolink. But it does connect out to Lambert Airport, which is city-owned, and you could go as far to say that maybe Lambert as a destination could be a neighborhood in and of itself. So our proposal is this: bring the neighborhoods to the Metro, 79 on one line. So it's no longer an idea about the Metro being just an access from point A to point B, but make the Metrolink a civic experience.
Right, so we're bringing neighborhoods to the train. And this creates an opportunity to engage the whole city in our light rail system. So folks from Old North St. Louis come down to see their neighborhood train. And at that moment, there's this sort of tourist attraction that kind of increases ridership at that point, but it also creates a really positive and engaging experience for them, which is likely in the future to increase the chances that they'll ride the Metro again. It gives them a really comfortable entry point into the train. The other thing is that it just brings awareness. So it's bringing people down to the Metro to get on it from all neighborhoods across the city. There's also a lot of community buy-in in the 79 or on one line program because we're asking the neighborhoods themselves to represent their hood. So that means that they are connecting with the train even if the train doesn't connect physically to their neighborhood. They're taking a little bit of ownership over the system. So you might be wondering what a neighborhood looks like on the Metro train. And we sort of distilled it into 4 points that a neighborhood could represent themselves. 1 is they choose a local an icon or landmark. 2, they get a retail space. 3, an establishment, a daytime and a nighttime. So this could be a daytime cafe or restaurant, and then at night it would turn into a bar or a music venue. And the last is that there's a community or public space from their neighborhood onto the train. So we're going to do a case study with Benton Park West. And just to give you an idea of how we envision the program potentially working, would be there's 4 main players. And at the first kind of point of interaction is a Metro representative, or maybe this is a citizen committee or someone from the Citizens for Modern Transit, approaches the neighborhood association or the business association in that neighborhood and tells them about the program, says, we want you to make a neighborhood train. And the neighborhood association reaches out to its businesses and its citizens and says, okay, they can kind of decide how they want to do this. They could do a competition or a vote and decide which of those 4 points I mentioned earlier they want to represent. And then those guys, so the businesses and citizens, work with a designer or a planner to figure out the best way to represent their neighborhood on the train. And then that designer goes back, works with Metro, installs the piece, and then the neighborhood train is on the tracks for 10 days at the end of a month-and-a-half process. Just so you know, our Metros the train has 2 cars, and there's 144 seats on the car. And our proposal, the design we have, just removes 19 seats from 1 car. And on average, there's about 25 trains on the track at one point. So this is a little SketchUp of our installation, and basically any train could be retrofitted to install these components. And we're not just looking at bringing these entities in as a graphic display, we want them to actually physically be there. So there's a satellite cafe, there's a satellite shop that people can really interact with. You can buy a drink, you can get a snack, and it's turning the Metro into Main Street. It's turning it into that community space that exists and is so representative of our city. So here's a very professional sketch of what it might look like if Benton Park West was on the train. So you see the Casa Loma Ballroom in the background. There's the Cherokee statue. We got a little dance floor next to the Cherokee statue. We have STL Style, Firecracker Press. All those things are for sale on the train. We also have the community space represented is going to be the Cinco de Mayo festival. So there's documentation of that. During the day, La Vallasana is there. You can buy taco samples. And this program also expands past the train itself onto the platform, so there's information about where you're getting onto the neighborhood and into the system. So we see there being sort of staging areas, one at the most eastern stop in the city at Laclede's Landing, and one at the most western, which we consider Lambert as the city-owned airport.
So in closing, the Metrolink is a civic experience. We think our idea has great concepts embedding with it. You're doing something other than just riding the Metrolink. It builds upon existing successes that Citizens for Modern Transit and Lambert International Airport has developed. By bringing the neighborhoods onto the Metro, it potentially creates alternative revenue sources for the Metro, but it also incentivizes ridership for people to go out into the neighborhoods. And then by doing that, the neighborhoods, including the airport, become destinations. It could also be an education campaign about how do you get to certain parts of the neighborhood after you get off the Metro. But finally, and most importantly, we think this is implementable, regardless of significant funding challenges about the 3 other issues we mentioned at the beginning. So, thank you. 79 on one line.
Can we have you guys come up? So we can put maybe our urban leaders right here, and you guys can grab that mic over there. Wow, I love this idea because, first of all, it made me think about, first of all, the transit history that maybe already exists in a lot of these neighborhoods. You had like an old streetcar on one of them, which I think gets people thinking about what used to be there and what maybe should be there again. Was that something that you guys were looking at? Like how would it change the neighborhood as far as incorporating the transit, you know, from where it used to be, or would you try to get stations to come there?
Well, I guess we're really thinking about these as satellite spots. So the neighborhoods are kind of moving a little like mini neighborhood, almost like almost like an amusement park in a way. But I think there could be really interesting ways in terms of a campaign to let people in the neighborhood know that their neighborhood is actually being featured on the Metro at that moment. And that might be a really interesting way to go about it, to look at transportation that used to go through that neighborhood, and how to like kind of capitalize on that and tell people that they're now on the Metro train.
And it would be a way for people to go out and ride it. They'd go on these like maybe bar crawls, but you would just stay on the train and drink all day on the train on these amazing train bars. But it would be a good way to get everybody to go out and ride together.
That was our first idea. First thing we said, we need a bar on the train. So.
I'm all for that. What do you guys think? What do you think as a way to inspire more people to get on the trains? Would this be something that you would want to participate in? You can go ahead, that's fine.
At CMT, we're always looking for ideas that are creative and outside the box. So we think this is a really interesting idea to bring in communities that might not currently be served by Metrolink, that in the future, we hope at CMT, they may be served. But this is a great way to get them on board early and create enthusiasm in groups like this and other groups. I mean, I think it's a great way to engage the community. So we think it's a really interesting idea.
And Rhonda, you're from the airport, so how is this going to get people to think about maybe taking the train to the airport instead?
Well, one of the best things we have at the airport is the Metrolink, and not only our employees, but a lot of the customers use it, especially those coming in for conventions. And anything that we can do to make it more exciting, to make it more inviting, is a critical piece. And you know, when we met and we talked to the team, one of the first things we said is that the airport is a destination within this city. We're the face that people see when they come and the face that they see when they leave. And it hasn't necessarily been the greatest face. And so we're changing that, and we're trying to hope that people will become a part of that. And I think, you know, trying to do different creative things that can start at Lambert and end at Lambert, and along the way encompass all these different points is a fabulous idea. So we love it.
That's great. Let's do it. What about the neighborhood branding? I also really liked, you know, reinforcing the neighborhoods that the stops already are found in. Do you think that really helps them, like say a conventioneer comes up, conventioneer, is that a real word? I'm making that a word. When they come to St. Louis and they want to, you know, step off at a station, you would help guide them into the neighborhood and show them what's great about the neighborhood?
Yeah, and also, I mean, in the neighborhoods I think the neighborhoods they get off in, they already see a bit of that when they step off the train, but really we're focused on too is making it really clear how to get off the Metro and get to south or north, because it right now doesn't, you know, have a line going that direction. So having educational material that's like what bus to catch when it's coming, all those things, really easily accessible.
That sounds great. All right, well, I think this is an idea that would definitely work, and it besides the bar part, which might have some legal implications, but a lot of the signage and things like that, I think people would get into it and wear costumes from Soulard, like on, you know, Mardi Gras weekend or something. I can totally see it. I think it'd be great. Well, thank you guys so much. So our next team is Arch City Revival.
So
are not already in the room like they are tonight. When you gather together all of the caretakers of culture and the creative types, you find that the reason why they stay in that room is that they're interested in talking about big picture ideas and placemaking. So my name is Katie Mike Smeistrela, and I've had the privilege of having some of these people in my own living room to talk about some of these issues and one of the most pressing challenges St. Louis faces.
Hi, I'm Emily Haymeyer, and I serve as the team's coordinator. Arch City Revival represents a diverse collection of people and skills. Essentially, we're all doers who dedicate our energy and much of our free time into making the city better. Although some of us didn't know each other prior to this project, we quickly developed camaraderie through the process. Our project is a result of egalitarian meetings held in living rooms across the city. What we created is not the idea of one person, but a culmination of many ideas and expertise.
So, the challenge presented to our team was definitely a hefty one. It carried some weight. We could probably easily spend the entire evening tonight talking about this challenge, or maybe even just reading it up there out loud. No. If you're a skimmer, skip to the last line. And just in reading that mere question, your eyes and your heart are immediately pulled to some very weighty words involving race, wealth, and segregation. These are the questions that urban leaders, and everyone in the room actually, needs to be asking themselves more frequently. So here's one particular visual serving as an example if we were to divide out one sector of the population. This is just one example, and we could use the census data to pull out other populations as well, but rather than deeply dwell in the colors on black and white, we'd prefer it if you honed in on the colors on the map, particularly where those colors meet. Those are the borders and the areas where our team was asked to focus on to redesign them as bridges. So when we focus on places and locations, it became clear that what was missing wasn't necessarily a physical object. It wasn't a magical thing that needed to be put into place. Our team was adamant that the focus remain on the people themselves as they participate and engage in the process of placemaking. Bridges between individual pieces of a whole are built through inclusion, and through community inclusion with citizen input, drawing on the strengths of St. Louis. That is how we identified some of these lofty goals. So, presenting street-side social centers. Let's get social. St. Louis does that pretty well. When you think about the Mardi Gras parades, the food festivals, the music events, we noticed that perhaps some of the ideas that Arch City Revival, we noticed that some of the ideas exposed in this challenge tonight might necessarily identify big or new or overly complicated ideas, but they might just build on what works, because what works is what works here in the Show Me State. So it isn't the Arch as a structure, but the blues festival that happens under the Arch that makes the city a great place to live. So it's not just what we build, but recognizing that that's a symbol, and the symbol is only as strong as the interactions that people have with it in their daily lives. So, you didn't think it would be an actual bridge, did you? I'm sorry about the reverberation. So, engagement has to begin somewhere, and the Streetside Pavilion would be the marker for that planned commitment to interact with your neighbors. Now, for those of you architect types out there that can immediately identify and eyeball a rendering and identify what the cost is and the feasibility, rethink this rendering, because it's not just a project to be built, bought, and forgot about. It's more of a recognizable visual beacon. It's a documentation of the process of people coming together. It's an open-air convergence point where the coming together happens, but also where we record what it is that happened. All right, so engagement has to begin somewhere, and here on the map we've identified target border areas. So one particular example here would be the border between Del Mar and De Bolivar. This area stands fairly divided, but the map is changing too. It will soon be activated by the Great Rivers Greenway. We've been talking.
Not sure where our AV people are, but we do need you now.
Okay, so anyway, this is good timing and a good location for the first street-side social center.
All right, so let's take a closer look at the physical aspects of the pavilion. So the primary feature here is a series of interactive kiosks that provide information accessibly. Additionally, and equally as important, the areas surrounding the pavilion will serve as a hub for special events, small gatherings, or simply a space to pause for those who are riding public transportation.
At some point in your life, you've been told to keep it simple. We tried to focus on that here, and simply put, one of the most basic barriers dividing human beings is access to information.
So here you'll see a mock-up of the kiosk detail, which is a way to pass information. Surprising as it might be to some of us, not everyone has access to the internet or an iPhone. And there's still a basic need to convey information in visible and concrete ways. Sure, there could be an electronic or digital component, but what this design allows is for three-dimensional work to be displayed as well. Informed by the people who live in the neighborhood, the kiosk content provides a wealth of information while serving as a documentary display of hard work of placemaking. Kiosks will contain points of pride and perhaps even maps of nearby neighborhoods, bike trails, metro and bus schedules. Rotating galleries will contain art created by program participants in addition to photographs of neighborhoods and events. Area history, a chalkboard, a bulletin board, a recycling how-to guide, and interviews with local personalities can provide additional content.
So we have not recreated the wheel here. If poorly done, this would barely represent a battered bus stop. The innovation, the risky part, the revolution lies in the agency the neighboring citizens have in the process of creation. The crux of the social center is interaction. We looked at similar programs already in existence in other places and decided what they all have in common is a communal passion and dedication, which somehow facilitates people gathering around a shared goal. That programmatic structure, that's what creates a rationale for coming together. The programming is the epicenter for interaction, and this is the intersection of where process and progress occurs.
So as you saw on the other slide, it was those were of large family events, and these are just kind of ideas of some of the programming that could occur. This slide is for drop-in workshops, and this next one is for something that we're calling external bridge building. So to further inspire interaction, there should be a context of programming outside of the pavilion location. The Inner City Bike Crawl is a program that would span neighborhoods and connect cyclists to local businesses. And of course, information would be available online and at the kiosk. This next slide, some of you might remember having a pen pal when you were a kid. The Dropbox Youth Exchange is meant to be a multi-school program that gives youth an opportunity to interact with others nearby, sharing music, media, and creative ideas. The year would culminate with youth-led performances at an annual event. Expanding upon a Missouri favorite, here is a potential external bridge building program, the Family Recipe Book. Tentatively titled Table to Table, the old-fashioned recipe book creates a forum for multicultural exchange through food. Potlucks would be wholeheartedly encouraged and tackled on to a family day event. This might mean that you're invited to the home of a stranger who's soon to become your best friend. Naturally healthy options would be a part of this program. Without doing a ton of research, it's been pretty apparent to us that most people enjoy a good party. If you've had a voice in party planning, even better, right? So this last piece of our idea is the annual Streetside Collab Festival, which serves not only as a collaborating event for our proposed programming, but also serves as the linkage between proposed streetside centers. The festival will activate the streets by providing ample opportunity for collaboration. Perhaps it'll even grow into a competition between streetside centers. Or maybe it leads to a citywide tour of the social centers. All right, so this last slide. Imagine the aspects of Street Fest that you relish most. Fireworks, snow cones, dancing in the streets, puppet shows, barbecue, or maybe even a three-legged race. This is an opportunity for locals to showcase who they are and what they love. Building upon past successes, we could even connect the Collab Festival with Open Streets Day. If it sounds like National Night Out, it's meant to. We live in an age where everything's remixed, remastered, and recycled, and the Arch City Revival wouldn't mind a return to some of the classics. History has taught us that which adds context, meaning, and knowledge works.
It comes back to the people. People precipitate the program, the results of the program ripple out, relationships between people develop, and difficult conversations as well as laughter build on each other. Thus, bridges are built and barriers are broken down. So this is the traditional call to action. Now, I've heard that if you name people specifically, you get a better response, so maybe I should name some folks like the Regional Arts Commission or HOK or the RCGA or Gateway Green Rivers, Greenway, but rather than actually going through that whole long list of all the collaborators we thought we could have, we put a simpler list up there of the people we'd like to befriend. So for those that are looking to join us, co-opt us, or co-create with Arch City Revival, come join us.
What happens within the programming is all a part of the beautiful process of this project. Even as a team, we've come to further develop friendships and learn from one another. You could almost say that what happened amongst individuals in the Arch City Revival is reflective of the programming process on a micro level within the context of Good Ideas Challenge. A solid program with a clear and simple rationale brings people together. Culminating positive social interactions at particular geographic points is a concept that builds on past success, the strength of St. Louis, and basic human hardwiring. If we want borders between neighborhoods to act as bridges, we all need to participate in the process of building places to gather and reasons to come together.
Jennifer, oh, you're with the team. You're like, I'm part of this. You want to come to the middle, Mike, right here? So this was, the challenge that you came to us with. Tell me about this solution and how you think it addresses it.
Well, at TrailNet, we do a lot of bike rides, we do community development work, so it is at the community level. So what we found people really respond to is the neighborhood. Like, what is that local history? I mean, one of those pictures up there was a literary ride about all of these local authors. So I think that's a theme we're going to hear throughout the night, that these neighborhoods really have a lot of history and character. So I like that idea of connecting them and letting people explore that more and letting people know a lot more about the neighborhoods. I don't know if you can see in the rendering, even on the floor, there's a map of all the neighborhoods.
We need more maps in general.
Yeah.
And I like that it was kind of to create these physical bridges is what we were talking about, but you made the point that it's really about programming. Right. And tell me how you realized that was almost more important than the physical space.
I think most of us agree that people are the heart of any city, any neighborhood, any interaction. So essentially what we saw as being the crux is a way to unify people. And a lot of us have done programming. Our programmers are artists, we're historians, and with our own programming, we identified that this was incredibly important, and that's what we pulled into this project.
And you did mention, like, specifically, you talked about, like, Grand, maybe closing that as part of it. Was there any other particular physical place that you think that this would be the best to do, like, say, a pilot program, or was there any places that came to mind for you? Of a particular,
I can speak to that. If you look at the original map and then the map over at our little station over there, we identified the areas where the segregation is the strongest. And you can see where it's amazingly separated from the low percentage of black people on this side and a high percentage over here. And so it's where those borders are the strongest. that we would want to start the pilot project.
And I think the other reason the team pointed out that de Bolivar, Delmar intersection is because there are partners already there.
That's right,
And so
yes.
that's why they highlighted, like, this is not going to work without the partners that are doing things. So you look for where that synergy is, as well as where those strong borders are.
That's fantastic. Thank you guys so much.
Drain with like the best name of the night. Brain drain.
Hi, I'm Tara Pham,
And I'm Matthew Strom.
and we're presenting on behalf of Brain Drain, a collective of young people who love St. Louis.
Good Ideas for Cities paired us with two civic leaders. Hank Weber is the Vice Chancellor of Administration at Washington University, and Patrick Brown is Assistant to Mayor Slay and Head of the Vanguard Cabinet. These leaders presented us with a challenge. How do we harness the energy, passion, and creativity of St. Louis's recent college graduates, new arrivals, and potential transplants in order to improve the quality of life of our region? Well, St. Louis's pool of human capital is already growing quickly. In fact, in the last decade, the city's population of 25 to 34-year-olds with a college education has increased by 89%. That's more than any other city in the nation. That's right, yeah. It's this energy that can change the perception of St. Louis as a vacant and stagnant city. With this in mind, Brain Drain has created a real-time visual feedback system that not only broadcasts the activity of our living and growing city, but also celebrates the continued involvement of its inhabitants.
So our idea begins with a beacon. Beacons like this one are placed at high-trafficked cultural hubs around the city. And in these renderings, we've used a real product that we equipped each one with a low-cost infrared sensor. So the closer you get to one, the brighter it becomes. And these come in two forms. For every larger one, many smaller ones can be placed in the surrounding neighborhood at various amenities, businesses, and attractions. And this network of nodes into the city will encourage pedestrian exploration. So with just a few minor modifications, each of these beacons simultaneously becomes additional light for safety, a wayfinding landmark, an interactive public art piece, and has the potential to become so much more. So where will these be placed? Well, using a very simple metric, we found one potential location in City Garden. By and large, we chose locations that had a lot of amenities within a quarter-mile radius, because a quarter mile is the average distance someone is willing to walk before choosing instead to drive. So here we look within a quarter mile of City Garden, and we find many landmarks, businesses, transit stops, and public spaces. By this metric, so much of current St. Louis is eligible for coverage by our Beacon program, and it gives instant attention to exciting activity in the city, both from the ground and from anywhere via the internet.
Because these beacons are networked, we can actually visualize the activity from a bird's eye view. By combining this information with information from geotagged social media, we can actually get a very clear picture of the constant activity of our city. Each of these blips represents a beacon being activated, or somebody updating their Facebook status, sending out a tweet, checking in on Foursquare, or uploading a photo to Flickr. This information can represent everything from a black tie gala to a house party to somebody simply walking their dog. And because we've gathered this information using already existing web technologies, we can present it in a functional web interface. This allows anybody with an internet connection to not only see the activity of the city, but interact with it in a meaningful way. So say, for instance, I see there's a lot of activity in Midtown right now. I can actually look closer and discover that there's live jazz at Cafe Ventana tonight. So this interface can actually be accessed by any web-capable device, from desktop computers to tablets to smartphones. And in fact, because of its intuitive design and quick access to location-based information, it can seamlessly translate to a public kiosk system that provides information and a valuable resource to those unfamiliar with the city or those simply looking to explore.
So this initiative is versatile. It improves street safety, promotes exploration, and fuels tourism. It engages new transplants to the region and re-engages longtime residents. And rather inexpensively, it's building an infrastructure that can be so much more down the line. For example, because these beacons are networked, each one can become its own Wi-Fi hotspot. Wi-Fi hotspot. And immediately, St. Louis is at the cutting edge. So really, our solution is about broadcasting the fact that our city has a great story to share. It refutes the damaging and obsolete reputation that St. Louis is inactive. Your day-to-day activity has a huge impact on the city you live in, and we're simply illuminating it. So we'd like to thank Hank Weber and Patrick Brown for helping us, as well as all of you for listening, and we encourage you to find anyone wearing a brain drain sticker to ask more questions and see how you can get involved. Thanks. And this is our team.
And I think they're the youngest team by far. I'm not sure. Did you guys? Yeah. Hopefully they got carded at the bar. They were all 21, I think. What I really liked about your solution is I immediately started thinking of it as a game and how young people would especially want to start, how people, just like how Foursquare is, I guess, like you try to brag about how great your life is on Foursquare and make everybody jealous. And I just really thought about, and at the same time, back to neighborhood pride, like, would you want to make the beacon near you glow the brightest? And would there be awards for the brightest one?
So that was definitely part of our idea. Plus, also harnessing social media really encourages anyone to get involved, including private businesses who could be tapped for funds for this. And because it's also accessible via the internet for something like your own business, you might have something as simple as an iPad with the map up and interact with it and have your customers who are already coming in promoting your business for you.
And for our leaders, what I liked about it too is that it said that basically everything great is already here, it's already happening. Is that something that you think is easy to convince people, maybe of the I'm not going to say older, but maybe the more seasoned people?
As one of them, I will tell you that's been an issue. One of the things that, as far as our city's concerned, that we have so many things to offer, and we have so many great places to go and things to do, and a lot of young people have really found what we have here. And I think sharing this with more people and connecting them in a better way with social media and other and technology, I think it'll want people to come here and see what we have. I think this is unbelievable. This is great. It's cool, and I think other people are going to want to see what we're doing here with this. This is great. Thank you.
I think what's great about this idea is it tells the world what all of us know, which is that St. Louis is a vibrant, active, great place to live. That's not always a national perception. And secondly, I think it's focused on the future. It's focused on the future in its imagery, and it's focused on young people. I have to make a huge admission. I don't know what Foursquare is. Do you? I do. But it's focused on using these tools in a way that expresses the incredible vitality, in a way that we can look and see, and it shows why this is a great place. And I think it's terrific in that way.
Great, thank you.
I think just having Wi-Fi at all those places in the city would be, you'd be ahead of like everywhere else in the country. So let's do that first, maybe.
Yeah.
Hi-Fi too.
Yes.
Hi-Fi.
Yeah. Whatever. Yeah, Hi-Fi Watt spots too. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's such an honor having you. Thank you so much. Okay. Next up, I'd like to call to the stage STL. I don't know. Should I say STL Provocateur or St. Louis Provocateur? Here they're coming.
Good evening. We are STL Provocateur. Everyone in this room cares deeply about the city of St. Louis. We have different interests, to be sure: architecture, population, education, transportation, political unification. Ours is sustainable food systems. Faced with bigger problems than fruits and vegetables, how do we create a framework that can touch individuals deeply enough to change ingrained health behaviors? Simply putting more fruits and vegetables into grocery stores and corner stores doesn't solve any problem. The mere appearance of healthier foods does not convince people to eat them. We don't understand what food means anymore: where it comes from, how it's grown, the chemicals we use to grow it, how it travels across the world. It's time to reclaim our food system. We need self-sustaining community spaces that educate, empower, and engage people to eat real food. STL Provocateur was issued the challenge of creating a regional food hub that would engage communities, create jobs, and support healthy food choices while using the assets of St. Louis. Our plan to revitalize the St. Louis food system works primarily on 2 levels: improving immediate food access and food literacy at the neighborhood level, and creating a regional hub to serve as a distribution center for local food, knowledge, and resources.
How do we solve the issues of access, education, and engagement with local food at the neighborhood level? St. Louis has enough vacant land to fill half of Forest Park. But wait for it. We propose to transform this unused land into small-scale urban gardens. All right, now these spaces are going to be different from the existing St. Louis community gardens because they're going to be supplying our neighborhoods in 3 ways: through direct food shares, through work shares, and by selling to the corner stores. Rather than assume that everyone in the neighborhood will have the time or interest to grow their own food themselves, these gardens will supply the corner stores that feed communities without supermarkets, so that residents can enjoy the fruits of their neighbors' labor. Those people with the time and interest will be able to buy garden shares directly or trade their volunteer labor for produce. Who will manage these spaces? Following the AmeriCorps model of partnering with neighborhood organizations, these gardens will provide paid managers from within the community. These will be people who know what to grow for their neighbors. After-school groups, including Boys and Girls Clubs and church groups, will not only keep the garden running, they will provide outreach to those unable or uninterested in participating. So how do we help tomatoes compete with chicken nuggets? Schools all over the country are introducing food gardens to bring biology, chemistry, and nutrition to life, and nothing can compare with the educational opportunity of pulling a carrot out of the warm earth and taking a bite. As seen in the Maplewood School District right now, students who take ownership of their school lunches are empowered to make better food choices at school, at home, and back in the neighborhood gardens. As community centers, schools can also host classes in cooking, canning, and garden maintenance. And of course, school gardens can provide food for the school and for the home. At this point, you might be wondering, where do all these resources come from? Let us present the St. Louis Regional Food Hub. The hub has 3 main purposes. It's a resource base, it's a knowledge nucleus, and it's a food distribution center. As a resource base, the hub will provide essential materials to the gardens. This is mulch, compost, soil, seeds, and plant starts. As a knowledge nucleus for local urban gardeners, the hub will provide a forum for regional growers to troubleshoot their problems. They'll certify our canning and nutrition class teachers back at the schools, and they'll train our neighborhood garden managers. But perhaps most importantly, the hub will be a local food redistribution center for the St. Louis region. The hub will centralize produce and arrange contracts with local restaurants, grocery stores, and CSAs to connect small local farmers directly to their consumers. To achieve this, the hub will hire local employees to unpack, process, and ship this food back out. And as the regional hub becomes more and more financially sustainable, a portion of this food will be donated to food banks, and a portion of the money will go to fund new gardener positions back in the neighborhoods. This regional hub is not a fantasy. It's being built as we speak, as FarmWorks in North St. Louis. We want to incorporate our ideas into this existing business model.
So how do we go from a city with over 7,000 discarded and diseased vacant lots and 1 in 3 people with chronic disease to a place where local food is valued and enjoyed on a daily basis? We believe that policy change is the answer. First, we propose a tax credit for grocery stores and institutions that purchase at least 15% of their food locally, thus rewarding the businesses that are investing back into St. Louis. This policy would also help to provide a steady stream of income to the regional hub. Second, we propose that FarmWorks set aside a percentage of their profits for the training, certification, and salaries of the urban garden managers who run the neighborhood hub gardens. Third, we propose that any new development or construction over $300,000 be required to contribute 0.5% towards a city fund for soil remediation and urban fruit orchards. This policy will help heal our sick soil and increase food access and familiarity. Finally, we need to change the way we occupy our vacant land. We need LRA policy that supports an ongoing commitment to community development, economic investment, and vibrant and healthy communities. St. Louis's current zoning policy was created in 1950. It's time to move forward. We advocate for a zoning change to form-based code that would allow a multitude of uses for this vacant land. Specifically for the urban gardens, the LRA would be required to lease the land for a minimum of 3 years before regaining the potential to sell. Urban gardeners would also be able to sell the food they grow from the land they grow it on. These policies would create sustainable garden spaces. STL Provocateur will be introducing new zoning policy around minimum leases and selling practices for urban gardens on LRA land. Follow us on social media for updates and ways that you can contribute. We will also be introducing a pilot program of the neighborhood model within the next year. If you live in a community or work with a community that is interested in implementing this program, please contact us through our website. This is change within our reach. Every idea that we've outlined here has a feasible solution attached to it. The problems here are not unique to St. Louis. They're problems everywhere we go, but the solutions we have proposed are. We want to utilize our physical assets in combination with the deep love and pride in each neighborhood in this city to create shared spaces for us all. Thank you.
And might I mention, they did it in only 7 slides that were hand-drawn. I think that's like a really amazing testament to how simple the idea is. I like this idea because it makes everybody become an entrepreneur. It kind of says, like, you could turn your backyard into a business for yourself almost, so and producing. And so we have so many people, like this line of people here, but how do you see that fitting into maybe like the small one-person gardener? Is that enough for everyone to maybe start these plots and selling back to these corner stores? Is that enough to swing the pendulum? Anyone want to, either one?
Well, we need to incorporate 2 levels of change. So, like I said, we can provide healthy foods for people, but that doesn't mean they're going to eat them. We need a culture shift. So creating these community spaces where people understand food and understand growing things and, take a bite of a fresh tomato that tastes nothing like any tomato you've ever eaten before, having that paired with the regional model to support small and mid-sized urban farmers, we feel would be the ideal.
And we talked about the hub, which is already, in process. This is happening. But there's also these 7,000, you said 7,000 lots that are, okay, so what kind of system goes into place to revitalize those 7,000 lots? Anyone from our?
Sure. I think at Gateway Greening we have found that a ground-up model is what works the best. And I think that's one of the great things you included in your proposal as well, is that we're talking about stirring activity and responding to activity on the neighborhood level. So that would include identifying properties on the neighborhood level and bringing neighbors together. And that's, Gateway Greening's had approximately 200 gardens that we've supported in that same way. And this just is an interesting new twist on it to connect those gardens maybe a little more deeply than they currently are.
And do you want to say something about just the development of the hub and why that's so important? I think a lot of cities are shifting towards this place where the food comes to one central area and can go from there. Why is that so important?
Well, FarmWorks is a mix of housing, a green business incubator which focuses on distribution and processing of locally grown foods. It has an urban farm in it with indoor and outdoor growing, and then it has an educational piece which is real important. I like the idea because it does, as Mike said, it really hits all these neighborhoods. What hopefully this FarmWorks hub can do is really bring more local food a lot of small farmers can grow plenty, but they can't get their product out to the people who need it. If they knew there was a ready place to go with it all, they could grow more. I think St. Louis can be a leader in urban ag with the resources that we
There's
have
no
here.
excuses, really. There really
No,
isn't.
it's just something that needs to be done, and we hope FarmWorks is a start with that. We all know that local food is better for the environment, better for us, but it can also be good for St. Louis with jobs and helping these neighborhoods and helping people.
And I like the idea of you know what to grow for your own neighborhood. You know what your neighbors like. You know what people want to buy, and we don't have this surplus because you've talked to them and you know what people are cooking in your neighborhood. Really great work. Thanks so much, you guys. All right, from food to education, Activate the City is up next.
Hello. We are Team Activate the City, made up of this wonderful group of humans back behind me. Kevin McCoy, Regina Martinez, Dana Kriz is not here, Daniel Waxler, Carly Trosclair, Mallory Nizam, and myself, Stan Chisholm. And our urban leaders who have been incredible for us, Jay Swoboda, Rochelle Morgan, Sarah McCabe, and Rob Donnelly.
Would everyone please reach under their seats and pull out a small strip of paper that's taped to the underside of your chair?
That's right.
And read it, please, to yourself quietly. So you have been given a challenge or a scenario that many of our St. Louis Public High School students deal with every day.
If you could, please, raise your left hand if you think this is an issue that is being dealt with in schools currently. And raise your right hand if you think it is an issue that is not being dealt with currently. Imagine thousands of creative, innovative, and fresh-thinking minds working to pursue solutions for these issues every day.
No, we're not talking just about you. We're talking about our high school students. Based on the Missouri Department of Education website for the 2010 to 2011 school year, the 4-year high school graduation rate for St. Louis public high school students was 52.6%. That means that roughly half of our high school students aren't graduating. Which brings us to our challenge. How do we motivate and empower more local high school students to graduate? It costs more than twice as much annually to incarcerate a person as it does to educate them. Clearly, our priorities are skewed. There is money, but our resources are being put into the wrong places. So we identified 2 major problems with education currently. The first one is that school doesn't feel relevant and applicable to the students' lives. Classroom content often remains abstracted and intangible, and students want classes to be more hands-on. Problem number 2 is that a lot of the basic needs of these students, these basic needs outside of school, are not being met. A lot of those basic needs are on the pieces of paper that you received. These are things like the lack of transportation, lack of childcare, lack of housing and healthy food, the list goes on. And when these basic needs are not being met, it's really hard for students to focus on school or to be successful at school, sometimes to even show up. It's hard to care when there are more pressing and immediate issues that they're dealing with outside of the classroom walls. And we wanted to find a solution that would address both of these issues.
We surveyed and conversed with students from Shearwater School. Shearwater is an alternative high school where students are given other chances to graduate. Here are a few quotes from the students. Clearly, it's important for students to be exposed to a variety of opportunities and personal experiences. And we hope that they will be able to do that at the site, blurring the lines between life and education. We all know one unique characteristic about St. Louis is that 1 in 5 buildings are vacant. It's one of the highest in the country, but we would like to utilize that as a resource.
So the site is a learning tool, a sketch pad, and a hub for future classes and resources where experience is instantly relevant and applicable. At the site, students will undergo vocational training through hands-on experience. The site will be open to the community and become a space for students to identify and analyze community issues. Graduates come back to the program as mentors, creating an ongoing atmosphere of community and participation. Students take ownership of their education and their community. So the site programming is broken up into 2 stages, exploration and specialization. Through exploration, during the first 2 years of school, students participate in vocational classes once a week with a monthly site visit to the site proper and to different sites around the city. During the specialization stage, after the students have explored, they decide what trade they would like to specialize in. And they work at the site 2 to 3 times a week for half days, and they do hands-on apprenticeships. Students have to maintain a minimum level of attendance in order to progress in the program, and all of the classes at the site and through the site are for credit.
So if there are so many vacant buildings in St. Louis, there has to be at least one for each school, right? So we'll begin by establishing one that's extremely local, hopefully one that's within walking distance from the school. The students will build the site, treating it as a lab for developing skills such as electrical work, law and policy, interior design, construction. The physical making of the space will make the students better problem solvers. And working with the building becomes a metaphor for working with the students who also feel that they may be abandoned. Once functional, the site will remain available for continuous structural learning, as well as for hands-on classes such as fashion design or culinary arts, just a few things that students have mentioned that they were interested in. Students will also have the chance to decide how to use the space for addressing community issues. If they decide or if they identify that access to healthy food is an issue, the site can offer services such as planting a community garden or offering an on-site dietitian. Students will also be able to address issues by creating facilities such as computer centers or daycares or gyms. Guiding the students will be the team. The team is an acronym for touring educators, advisors, and mentors. The educators are a collection of professionals who travel from school to school, developing a citywide network and giving the students refreshing perspectives directly from those who make our city work. The advisors have a comprehensive understanding of the site. They will bring the students' suggestions to life and will coordinate and appoint who the educators are. The mentors is a staff of counselors and also alum graduating students from the site. And we'll also have special guest teachers who will be welcomed to the site from each respective school, pretty much to open up dialogue from the school to the site, so it doesn't seem like it's just stuck in the classroom or just stuck at the site.
So what are the accomplishments of the site? The short term, school is finally more relevant. School's simply going to be more fun, and it's going to make learning make more sense because it'll be tangible. Students also gain these tangible vocational skills that can put them directly into the workforce. And for our long-term accomplishments, more classes will be possible over time as the site is continually developed. And graduates of the site come back as mentors, so there's this ongoing sense of community and of giving back. School will also feel more relevant to the students' basic needs. So through work at the site, students are learning skills that can help them address their basic needs, and it teaches kids to be problem solvers as well as doers. And students, in the end, will be taking ownership of their educations as well as their communities. So, in order for a solution like this to come to fruition, partnerships need to be in place, and we just brainstormed a few. Habitat for Humanity, which we all know works in building spaces, and the Land Reutilization Authority, which I think has already come up, that has possession of a lot of these vacant spaces, and of course St. Louis Public School District needs to come to the table as well. This is our vision. This is the site, blurring the lines between life and learning. Thank you.
We have our leaders here who participated. Are you guys? You're all intermixed now. I love that. You're all working together. So you guys are from, very different, different groups around the city. Are there any things already like this that are maybe serving students that you could see maybe, because I think getting a building, it would require a lot of work. We'll talk about that in a second, but are there places like this that maybe are already trying to do things like this for students?
Well, of course, I'm a little biased because I work for Shearwater High School. I'm the community affairs manager, and so I definitely see that our program is trying to address the dropout crisis by providing opportunities to students through work-based learning opportunities, so they do get exposures to different, fields of work, and pairing that with their classroom setting.
And you do see that when they say, I love the quote, like when I went to a music studio, I realized that I should get involved in music. Do you really see that real world connection with those real skills, those real, crafts that they need to learn out in the world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the reality is education is not a one-size-fits-all approach. I mean, I'm not going to tell my age, but, obviously when I was in school, it was very different from students today. And so the thing is, what is going to keep them engaged? What is relevant to them? And not everybody learns through textbooks. Some people learn through music or through media. So really tapping into that individual student's needs and figuring out what makes them tick, what helps them learn.
Mm-hmm. And just talking about, again, the idea comes up, there's all these empty spaces in St. Louis, and I think you're right, there probably is one building per each school that's probably in pretty close to where they're located now. Did you look at anything like zoning or other things that are already kind of in place that would prevent this, that need to be changed?
From a city zoning perspective, the residential side of this is, there's some of these families that are homeless, and they need housing. And so imagine adopting, maybe not a student, but a community member who needs a house. Sarah's group is actually working on a youth shelter, and they need to rehab a space right now. So there's opportunities to think outside of the box other than just residential, but looking at multifamily, mixed-use, commercial, first floor retail. There's a lot of combinations, and we've got a great planning, urban design. We've got great folks in zoning who are willing to be really creative in this city. So I think it just takes bringing the ideas to them.
And the idea that high school students would want to do this, did you get a sense, did you talk to them and they were interested in things like interior design and planting gardens, and that's where they're coming from?
Definitely, the idea is, a lot of these folks operate they need some money in their pocket at the end of the day, and they need to understand that diploma is going to be worth something, and if it is something, they don't trust the value. They know money, they know that's value, and so if we can show value that can come through education, that allow them to put money in their pockets and food on the table, for themselves and their children and other folks, I think we've got a great opportunity. Right. We really heard it, and this group did a great job. Let's give them a big round of applause.
So do you have, just quickly, is there a place you have in mind? Is there one, can we find a building? Can we find a school that would cooperate? Maybe Shearwater would be able to work with us on finding a building or something?
Yeah, I think we've got opportunities. There's so many great spaces, just a matter of picking a school, picking a neighborhood, and finding community partnerships that are kind of in place already.
That's right.
So we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. Well, thank you guys so much. Great work. All right, up next, Live the Lou, another very creative name. Get him a little.
Hi there. Ooh, hello. That's right. I got it. Hi, I'm Stacy Way. Oh my gosh, I'm taking this off. Wonderful. Hi, I'm Stacy Way with Mackie Mitchell Architects. This is Uward from 9 Network, and behind me is our amazing team. Will you guys all just like raise the roof or do an interpretive dance or something, please? Yes! Thank you. And we have all been lucky enough to be paired with Maggie Hales of East West Gateway and Tom Etling of St. Patrick's Center. They are wonderful. So, our challenge, it has to do with government fragmentation, or rather, the lack of regionalism throughout our fair city. And when you think about it, we are indeed a fragmented region. I mean, just look at us. We cover 2 states, we have gobs of municipalities, we have 28 wards alone in the city, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, is it? It's kind of nice to have smaller, more accessible governments. Think about it. The problem is our us versus them mentality. It's every man for himself out there, and we are all competing for the same resources. So our team realized that this challenge is all about cooperation. And we asked ourselves, what motivates us to work together? There are a few major motivators: money, force, crisis. That's right. But then we discovered something really interesting. Darwin might have first postulated that an every man for himself approach was required for survival, but when digging down, the societies that truly succeed are the ones that band together for the mutual benefit of the common good. Over a century ago, biologists and zoologists were observing wild species where cooperation was found at all levels of existence, and those were the species thriving while others were dying out. Now, I'm no scientist, but it seems that much the way I design buildings with biophilia in mind, according to the basic tenets of nature, perhaps our societies should construct themselves parallel to those that have succeeded in the past. Dare I postulate, altruism is indeed evolutionarily advantageous. And wouldn't you know, 30.5% of St. Louis area residents volunteer an average of 37.5 hours a year. Did you know we ranked 9th in the country for volunteer rates? We are indeed an altruistic region. So why aren't our Midwestern values translated into our fragmented government, into our civic organizations? The only way to counteract a dog-eat-dog mentality is to shift the perception. Better Together is our team's solution to the lack of regionalism inherent in Greater St. Louis. The solution is two-pronged. First, an educational campaign targeting not only citizens but businesses, government, and non-governmental organizations. Education is empowering. It is enlightening. Through it, we can shift the paradigm. We know that when we act as a team, we can achieve great things. We know this because we've done it. The cooperation and vested interest of both St. Louis City and County funded the revitalization of the Museum Zoo District, which has since drawn over 300 million visitors to the region. This district has become a model for cities across the country. And because of TrailNet's collaborative efforts, 80 municipalities have access to bike routes, paths, and accessible alternative transportation options. We as a region achieve great things when we work together.
But sometimes we don't trust our gut. Sometimes we have to rely on outside examples to tell us what we already know. In Pittsburgh, 32 counties across 4 states collaborated to help the region surpass the likes of New York City, San Francisco, and Boston to achieve a 3rd-place national ranking in economic development. Louisville created MetroSafe, one network that ensures communication barriers don't hinder police, fire, and EMS responders when they are most needed. Indianapolis, through a regional referendum, enticed businesses back into their downtown core and saw a population boom of more than 290% in under a decade. Better Together is about education and action. To join, pledge, celebrate, and converge. Better Together intends to first modify the way we think about cooperation and then to compel additional action. Express interest. Agree to play well with others, find ways to share and celebrate our successes, and perhaps take the most unprecedented step of all, meet. Get all of the people in our region who make the decisions and policies in the same room on a regular basis, give them the opportunity to discover common ground and to work together. Right now, the St. Louis region does not do this. It is imperative to our survival that decisions are made with a regional vision in mind. Everyone needs to be involved. It all begins with a hashtag. From there, the Better Together movement asks organizations, businesses, individuals to make a commitment. Something as simple as a sticker or a logo on a website can serve as an important first step in reaffirming a dedication to a greater cause and to compel others to do so too. Growing up is hard to do as a child and especially as a region. Eventually every kid and community is going to have to learn to share its toys. And what if technology was used to celebrate our common successes? Install a greater sense of civic pride, gather and thank those who have made a difference. What if our media outlets, existing stakeholders, and peer networks were enlisted in this effort? The more that people see, hear about, and experience examples of regional collaboration, the more it will become habitual and expected, and the more people will engage with it. With action, exposure, and accountability, we can alter our results. We all know we can do great things because we've done them before, and we continue to do so. But only by working together towards a common set of goals with a regional vision will the rest of the world see what we see and know what we know. And with the emergence of cities like Shanghai and Rio, we cannot afford to continue competing against ourselves. If we want to survive and thrive in a shifting world, we must be better together.
But don't worry. If all else fails, we have a contingency plan.
Declare war on Chicago.
So, if you believe, as we do, that our region is more compelling, more competitive, and better together, connect with us at BTSTL.
Make a commitment to your region, educate, and involve others.
And what a delivery was that. Pretty amazing. I feel like it was in a Quentin Tarantino movie or something. I can't believe you got Liz Lemon to sign that. That's amazing.
Jack down.
You know, it was pretty easy, actually. She wanted to.
Yeah.
She came to us.
So this first of all, when this challenge came out from our lovely leaders, who kind of spread out, we just thought it was so abstract in a way. It's something we all understand. I even understand, growing up here and leaving, but we all get it. But it's so abstract. How did you even begin to piece it together and decide that it needed to be something like a campaign rather than maybe one particular project that everybody collaborates on, like in Indy and things that you talked about?
Well, let me tell you, St. Louis is a drinking town, so we sat around with a couple beers. And we were all friends before we came together, and we were all friends through professional organizations and things. So cooperation is kind of a way of life for us. So when we were thinking about a lot of the problems that the city is faced with, we thought the root of those problems came down to not working together, not playing well, and not having accountability for our actions. There's no parent over us making us sit in the corner when we don't play nice with Illinois or when we don't play nice with St. Charles. So that was the main premise of our concept.
And were you going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say that if you want to implement a change and a culture and kind of get a region to think together, there's only a few ways to do that. So we can declare war on Chicago for their inferior crust, or we can
still a good idea.
Change our culture through conversation, getting people in the room, and then highlighting and celebrating the examples that we do have.
What about from our leaders? Would you be able to go back to your office and tell people they have to sign a pledge and play nice?
Well, where I work, we are always working at playing nice, and I love the focus on the city of St. Louis. There's no metropolitan region in the world that is successful without having a strong urban core. But when you look, but our national economy and the international economy is really built on metropolitan regions. So we're interdependent. The city of St. Louis is dependent on St. Louis County and St. Charles County and Illinois. and they are dependent on the city of St. Louis. So we really need to come together to build a strong metropolitan economy to help the whole United States have a strong national economy. So that was the perspective that I came with. And in response to the question about one project versus the second project versus the third project, what I love about this solution is that it goes beyond one campaign or the second exciting project, and it really presents a way that we can come together over time to tie all of these independent campaigns and projects together.
That sounds great. And I think we can all, would you like to say something about how it affects your work?
I was just going to say a big key here was taking credit for what we've done already. So a lot of these partnerships and collaborations are in place already. The Mayor's Office, from St. Patrick Center's perspective, has been extremely supportive of helping people that we serve in our community. Craig Heller is a visionary, and a lot of the folks that are going to be working at sites like Craig Heller's Project FarmWorks are St. Patrick Center clients. They're people, they're ex-offenders, they're less fortunate people in our community. And so a big part of this is taking credit when we do things well, and a lot of the examples from Forest Park to things that have happened with Metro in recent years really allow us to take credit and reflect on what we've done well. I have 64 first cousins, and 62 of them came back to St. Louis. So I think we need to collaborate more as a region, work together, and we're going off to great places. So thank you.
So you'll get all of them to sign the pledge at least, right? So that'll be, we'll be halfway there. And everybody here will do it, right? You'll all sign the pledge. Okay. Thank you so much. And for our last team tonight, final one, HOK, is it FIT or FIT? FIT, HOK FIT.
Holy cow, this is very exciting. Okay. My name's Charlie, and thanks for your attention, and on behalf of the HOK FIT team, thanks for this opportunity. St. Louis is blessed with a treasure of open spaces, greenways, rivers, and parks. But we come to a critical point, and we're in jeopardy of losing these amazing assets due to disinvestment, decay, and disinterest. The question we were asked was, how do we ensure that St. Louis can protect, preserve, and maintain our prized parks and open space for generations to come? The way we see it, we'll do it with a focus on unification, awareness, physical improvements, social media, and education. Parks are such a core benefit and vital role in our life as St. Louisans that sometimes we might miss how important they are, what they really do for us, how they really impact us, and how connected we really are to each other. They transcend social, cultural, and economic divides. To do that, nature is the great connector, and parks are the great unifier in our region. When we talked with Susan and Kevin, we realized the biggest challenge is a cultural mindset. We take for granted what an amazing resource we have in our region. We tend to think of parks as individual instances rather than a whole. So we need to change the perception. We don't just have parks in the city. We are a city in the park. Regionally, we have more than 400 parks. I'm going to use the city as an example tonight. The city has about 60 square miles. Forest Park, just by itself, has had a little over 2. And there are still 3 more square miles of parks spread out in the city. So that's like having another 1.5 forest parks just in the city. Yeah. But so that's about 12% of the land area in St. Louis is a park. It's a huge area, but we need to instill a sense of ownership in these parks to make sure that they can last. Fundamentally, we need to begin towards an adjusted perception of what a park system is. A symbiotic and living, a park needs attention and care. We have to realize that parks aren't a one-way street. We need parks, and parks need us. So we propose that starts with education and awareness. A desire to see the county parks and city parks as a whole, a region-wide, neighborhood-led PR campaign, outreach, signage, physical improvement, regional awareness, as well as local awareness, sponsorship, advocacy, promote responsibility, and provide the means. Like building on the amazing work Great Rivers Greenway is already doing throughout our region, we can just create an awareness how close we really are to all the parks just by mapping them for people. One thing we can change is the celebration that you have found a park. Our signage is a little lacking. Provide a kinetic identity. Give people the understanding that it's something we need to work to protect. We need to redefine the park. As we redefine the park, we have to take responsibility to nurture them, to improve and sustain them, to educate people on their amazing benefits. We need to educate with stewardship. Use the classrooms. Use school service programs. Rely on our need to be social creatures. Invite people. Actually invite people to come and play. Use technology. Design smarter parks that require less maintenance. We can ask nature how to do that. It's not a problem. It's not an opportunity. It is an obligation. And it starts with us tonight. We can ensure that the city is able to protect, preserve, and maintain our prized parks for generations to come by redefining unification, awareness, education, and stewardship. With efforts like this, when my son grows up, no one will ask him where he went to high school. They'll ask him what park he grew up in. Thanks.
Well, that would just change everything for St. Louis. You've ruined like everything for St. Louis if we can't talk about high schools anymore. That's very...
I'm surprised I was the first person to bring up high schools.
So, from our leaders' perspective, are these some things that you think are already trying to be applied? Like, I especially love the idea of this taking ownership. Are there ideas around taking ownership of your local parks already out there that you've seen that are good?
There are, Alyssa, and I have to be honest. I looked at the list and I thought, wow, we're last. And I watched tonight, and I want to tell you that everything that was presented tonight can be incorporated in a Greenway. And we're going to take those home tonight. I know we've got staff out there. We work with TrailNet. But a Greenway is about transcending political boundaries. It's about connecting communities and neighborhoods. It's about incorporating art and history and food. But we have to take care of them. And so that was my challenge for HOK Fit. It's a huge, huge effort to take care of the parks. And while the district can do some, we have 137 partners and they cannot do it all. And so I was really, really excited. And yes, we're going to use what they did because this is what we need. We all have to work together or we won't have parks. And imagine the city without parks. And so I'm really excited about what we saw tonight.
That's great. Thank you. And for Kevin, you're working with downtown, so that's something to consider. Nobody probably knows that there are, more forest parks in downtown than Forest Park. How can these ideas be applied to let people know that there are more places for them to, go in downtown besides just going to Forest Park or maybe the Arch Grounds?
Well, I think most people in their own communities do love their own parks, but we rarely as a community think collectively about what a great asset that is for all of us and something as a point of pride. I think that came through in a lot of the issues tonight is how many assets we have and our failure to both celebrate ourselves for what we do have and also to think collectively about how we preserve and maintain and celebrate these assets. So I think a lot of people talk about campaigns. It's not as simple as a marketing campaign, but it's about taking pride in what we have and celebrating that. And this is something we fail to do in St. Louis.
It's wearing those T-shirts and saying, well, this is my local, mine was Queenie Park, that's where I grew up. And it was like, that's exactly what you want to have, the exact same pride as you do for your high school.
Right.
People.
To think about 12% of our landmass in the city of St. Louis is pretty amazing, and you think of that relative to all the other values.
As cities like LA are, we're clawing our eyes out trying to get more park space that we can't take back from the city. You already have it.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for
Thank
your
you.
work, and we can't wait to see what happens. Well, that is the conclusion of tonight's program, but the work is not over. We need to go. The teams are going to go to all their little easels set up all around the space. Oh, I'm going to show you the map again. Hold on. Ooh, I almost fell. Oh, she's like fading away. She'll be back. She'll be back. Okay, here's the map. So if everyone wants to go to your easels and talk to people, give them your ideas, share your contact information, and we will see you all in 6 months. Thank you so much.